candidates to enter the field, and I think it's good. It makes the candidates sharpen their skills. So we want to hear from all of them. And this candidate is from here in New Hampshire. He's a native. He's an airline captain, which I certainly appreciate and respect, being a former flight attendant. And most importantly, he's a former combat fighter pilot from Desert Storm, and we appreciate his service because we all know the importance of freedom and liberty, and that's what our men and women fight for. And so now I want to bring up and introduce to you Christopher Hill.
Well, hello, New Hampshire. It's good to be back home. I promised Howard that I'd keep this to about 3 minutes, so if you pay attention, I'll keep my promise. My name's Christopher V. Hill. I'm an airline captain for UPS. I'm a former Air Force fighter pilot with over 50 combat missions from Desert Storm 20 years ago. I grew up right here in New Hampshire, from Bedford, New Hampshire. I'm a graduate of Manchester West High School and the University of New Hampshire, an Air Force ROTC distinguished graduate. Over the years, I've worked in numerous campaigns in New Hampshire. I started off when I was just 16 years old in 1980 working for Ronald Reagan's campaign, and I helped him win the primary right here in New Hampshire. So I know what it's like to be with you out there trying to make a difference for the candidates that come up here. Unfortunately, over the last 30 years, we've seen the same cycle over and over again, and they're candidates who come to the stage, look you straight in the eye, and tell you what they want you to hear, what will it take to get elected, and then they go to Washington, D.C. and do something completely different. Last year, like a lot of you, we were fed up. I organized a group called Pilots and Patriots Defending the Constitution. And we joined other groups around the nation, including the Tea Party, in order to elect candidates to Congress, representatives, and senators who took an oath to the Constitution first and not to either political party. By speaking to a number of individuals and groups around the country, I had an opportunity to introduce myself and told them what I stood for. And after about 15 minutes of speaking, a lot of them looked at me and said, "You know what? I'd vote for you." Right. And I said, "I'm very flattered. But before I take a step to run for President of the United States and put myself and my family out there and once again try to serve this nation, I need to know, can you look at a ballot with names like Mitt Romney, possibly Sarah Palin tomorrow, Michelle Bachmann, Rick Santorum, big political politicians that have been in office for years and years, names, and get to a guy named Christopher V. Hill and say to yourself, that's the airline captain, the guy who laid his life on the line for this country 20 years ago. Could you mark the ballot for that guy?" And they said, "I would." And so they said to me, "Go home, get your folks organized in New Hampshire, and run for President of the United States." So we started this campaign 1 month ago. People ask me, "Why are you starting so late?" I said, it's simple. If you're from New Hampshire, the only people that go to New Hampshire in January and February are the people who have no name recognition whatsoever. So we waited until August, gearing up towards Labor Day. I got on the Howie Carr show about 3 weeks ago, right after the Iowa straw poll. And Michelle Bachmann had won that with 4,800 votes. At the time, Avi Nelson was filling in for Howie Carr. And I said, "Avi, I'm the newest presidential candidate running in New Hampshire right now." I told him what I stood for, and he said, "You don't sound nuts to me." And I said, "I can assure you that I'm not. We can make a difference this time." And I said, in fact, Avi, I said, Michelle Bachmann just won this straw poll with 4,800 votes, and I can assure you that today, there's way more members of the Howie Carr audience hearing my message than participated in that straw vote in Iowa. So here I am. Let me lay out what I'm running for. Basically, you won't hear another candidate talk about this. We need to change the direction in this country because we have an aristocracy in America, and it's called the United States Congress. So as President of the United States, I will direct the American people to put pressure on Congress to adopt a term limit for representatives and senators in Congress. So at every event you attend, you challenge the candidates and ask them if they're willing to support term limits for congressmen and senators. After that, we need a balanced budget amendment because they don't have the spine to do what's correct in Congress, and something that we have to do every day in America, that's balance our family checkbooks. Third, we'll reform the tax code in this country because after 100 years, and people who understand the history of the tax code and the Federal Reserve System, we understand it's become corrupt. And so we're going to put in place a system that's based on the fair tax, and from there, we'll tweak the system until we get everybody involved. And finally, let me speak about this point. 20 years ago, when Desert Storm started, a lot of you were with me. In fact, a lot of people say, Chris, how are you going to connect with the voters in New Hampshire? And I say, you know what? For the people who skied at Sunapee, New Hampshire, they've already connected with me. For the people who attended Manchester high schools, they've connected with me. For the people who attended the University of New Hampshire, they connected with me. And 20 years ago, for all of you that watched the first nights of Desert Storm, when I flew an F-15 Strike Eagle into Kuwait and Iraq with the F-117 stealth fighters, and you watched us liberate a nation, you were with me. And so when it comes to national defense, I can stand here and tell you this. I am for ending the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I'm for bringing our troops home just like Barack Obama promised and never did. In fact, on October 27th, a few years back, you can check out a YouTube video where Barack Obama said specifically to his audience, on day one when I'm in office as President of the United States, if the troops aren't out of Afghanistan and Iraq, I will bring them home and, quote, you can take that to the bank. Well, you know, we just had our bloodiest month in Afghanistan in August, and so he failed America. Let me say one last thing about Mitt. You know, I expected to have an opportunity to speak tonight, and being the closing act puts me in a little different situation. But 3 years ago, like a lot of you, I was living in Bedford, New Hampshire, and I stood in a cafeteria with Mitt Romney. And I said, Governor Romney, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. It's Saturday morning, it's about 20 degrees outside, and this room is full of American taxpayers, and we'll hear what you have to say. We'd love to hear what you have to say. We had a chance to talk a little bit, and I was impressed with him. Now, if you go check out our website, and I'm going to tell you what it is, it's Hill, Hill 2012.com. You'll see that on the front page, the very first thing I talk about is getting rid of career politicians. Well, Thursday, in the USA Today, Mitt Romney called Rick Perry, quote, a career politician. So now, apparently, Mitt Romney stands with me. So I'd like to invite you to come back to the smallest table in the back with the biggest heart, take a look at our brochures, and join us at Hill2012.com. Join us tomorrow in Manchester and Nashua, New Hampshire, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you. Have a great night.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you.